Well, welcome back into the studio. I am getting prepared for my 2026 art business planner. And this is the one that I did this last year. I will link in the upper right hand corner to the making of this planner. And I love this cover, the crinkle of it. I used an Amazon mailer inside of this for that crinkle with fabric around that. And this time I did create a tassel to keep my spot, which I have loved. So these were a bunch of different printables that I've used, and here I had put my social media calendar in it. I found that I wasn't using that. I used one online, so I'm not gonna be using that during this for my new planner. But I loved using the printables and printing my video schedule for each month. So this video schedule I have available in my shop. I will list that down below as well. Some things on this one, I had a pocket in the back, but I found that I never used it because it's so shallow. I should have made it deeper. But I'm not gonna make a pocket for my new planner. So my thoughts on that was I'm gonna make some sheets that I can cut out my pages and adhere onto it instead of I perfect bound these. So rather than perfect binding, I will go in and I will actually stitch it like a regular like I would an art journal. So the other thing is I want to do some fun stuff with those background pages. So I'm going to just take some basic copy paper and I'm going to do some coffee staining on them, coffee dyeing. And so I'm going to have some footage of me doing that up next. I did already do those pages. And when I filmed it, I thought I was just going to do a reel of it, so it's in the vertical. But I will include it here so you can see it all in one place. And my idea for the cover was to use this quilted piece. So there is some other stuff on it, like some flowers, so I'm not sure how much will have that. I'm not really concentrating. I want some of this on it. I don't even care if I don't have this on the bottom and it's just along two edges. I'm not really worried about that. I'm going to take this apart because it's actually a pillowcase, which I didn't realize when I got it. So what I could do is I could separate this fabric off of this, and I actually could cut it down and then take this here and sew it on so it would have the trim all the way around. That's an option, but we'll see. So I also really love this fabric. It's very thin though, so I wasn't sure how that would work out, but I'm thinking of using this fabric for the inside of the journal. And I'm going to still use an Amazon mailer for the inside. So that is my plan for next year's 2026's art business planner. So the next thing we're going to do is get those coffee stained papers. I'm going to do some gel printing on them, I think, to make them a little bit more interesting. Nothing huge, because I will be just gluing the printables on to those pages. And I will have down below linked all the printables I used and links to whoever's they were. So I had a whole bunch that I already had that I wanted to use, like I did this year for the 2025 one, but I know that people had asked me this time when this video came out, who, you know, where those came from. So I will actually name them and list them along with the shop that I got them from. I think they're fun to use in this manner. I don't really use printables a lot, but I have found it a fun way to make my my business planner a little bit more you know, just seasonal. The different ways that you can make it more seasonal for whatever the month is. So that is what I'm going to do. All right, I am going to be prepping my coffee dyed and iron dried papers for this planner. And I'm going to be using my gel press to do that. I'm going to be using this transparent brown iron oxide in the Golden Open series. So what the Open is it just dries a lot slower. So here in Arizona, for this kind of technique, this really works so much better than using just regular old acrylic. This does have a more open period before it dries. So what I'm going to be doing is getting my paint on this stamp pad of a gel plate. It's a 5x7 plate that I'm going to use as my stamp pad, and this is the texture I'm going to be applying. And I'm just going to stamp my texture into it and then stamp off onto this larger gel plate. This is the 8x10. And then I'm going to take my paper and start adding some of this randomly, like I've done here, is just picking up a little bit. So I don't really want sharp edges, but I love how these circles mimic the circles of the iron from our drawing. And I'm just going to be laying this texture out using my gel plate. It's kind of like random stamping, but using your gel plate. And you get such fun stuff. Then I like to pick the center up a little bit and see what's left. And then I'm gonna hang this to dry because this is still tacky. You can see my fingers are pretty coated. That's because this is an open acrylic paint that I'm using. And then I'm gonna come in, get my next sheet and do the same thing. So what I'm doing now is a second layer, and this time I'm going to be stamping it into white acrylic paint. Placing my sheet onto the larger gel plate because I want this to give a little bit. I don't want a hard surface. I want to get as much texture off of this piece of plastic. Stamping it into the paint and then pressing pretty hard to get a nice, good, clear stamp impression. getting some contrast on that page. Alright, so here are my inside pages. You have basically seen how I did this. So I did the coffee staining, dyeing, and then I dried the pages with a craft iron, with an iron that made this neat imprint, and I really like those circles. So I decided to use that idea, and I did some gel printing using a texture tool that mimics those little circles from the iron. And I did that in this, it is Golden Opens Brown Iron Oxide, which is transparent. And then I used just white acrylic to do a second layer to give it some contrast. So all these pages have been done, both sides, and now what I need to do is I need to fold them in half so I can adhere the printables on them. And so what I'm going to do now, using my bone folder, I'm just going to take them and fold them in half, and then make a seam. So instead of perfect binding them, like stacking them one on top of each other, like this, I'm going to actually make signatures out of them. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 4 signatures and break them up by quarter. So January, February, March is one signature. April, May, June is the second. July, August, September is a third. October, November, December is the 4th signature, and that's how I'm going to do these. But for right now, I need to get these all folded. Alright, so now I am going to be cutting down my monthly video schedule in half, and I have extra prints that match from this that I can put on. So these will go on the inside, and I'm going to separate them and lay them up and glue them to this page on the inside, and then I have this to go on the outside. That's what I'm going to do now, is get these cut down. Alright, so I've gotten them all cut down and into their folder. So what I'm going to do now is make my signature. So I'm going to actually pull them out briefly and make my signatures. Beginning. So this should be January, February, March. Oops. So this one was here. So that's my first signature. And these are the months that go with it. This is just for me to keep track of myself because I have a tendency to lose focus on it. So now I'm going to go through and I am going to glue onto each of my signatures the pages. So we've got this going here. And then the next would be my schedule. That would go here. Oops, not that one. This one. This is January. Then this is gonna go here. And then we have February. And this will go here. And March. Like that. So I'm going to clip those and set them to the side. And then just go through each of these and do exactly the same thing, and then I will clip them all and glue them all. Alright, so I am going to use my Barely Arts glue because I can get a fine bead of, you know what, no I'm not. I was going to use that glue, but I really don't want to use a liquid glue on this because I just don't want my paper wrinkling. It probably won't, but I'm going to be extra careful, so I'm going to use my tape runner. Dust this bad boy off. It's been forever since I've used it, so we'll see if I've got enough on here. I don't know. We're going to see how it goes. And I'm just going to use this right around the edges. I'm an over gluer, so you do you. Something I did forget to do was I wanted to distress my edges. So I think what I'm going to do is before I sew each of these, I will get that done. Now you'll notice the difference in one sheet is so brilliant in color, and then these where I have the video schedule is kind of muted. And I did that on purpose. I screened it back a percentage so that I can easily see my writing on these pages. All right, so these are all ready. I'm gonna edge this, use Distress Archival ink on the edges of these, and I'm just gonna use the Vintage Photo. So that's what I'm going to do next, and then we need to work on the cover. Okay, so I have an M8. This is an Amazon mailer, and the M8 size fits very well. So I'm just going to be splitting this apart and just using one side of it. And I'm also going to do some stitch ripping and get this separated. So that's what I'm up to next here. Okay, so what I need to do is figure out, I have to cut this down to size, and I don't want to use this piece. It's really thin. It doesn't have the puffy stuff in it, so I'm going to cut this down. And I want this to come over about 1/4 of an inch. All right, so about right here. So I'm just getting that marked down, and then I'm gonna come through and trim that up just with a big pair of scissors. I don't like to run these through my trimmer because it doesn't do a great job. And about 1/4 of an inch beyond on the top and bottom. It's about right there. I'm an eyeballer for the most part. That's 2 3/4. And so I cut there. And because I'm not sure how much is going to be showing through on this inside part, I'm going to use this for the inside, but I am going to gesso over real lightly this information here and make sure it's on the outside. The other thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I have the center marked. So this is a centering ruler, so it starts at 0 in the center and then goes out in increments of 1 inch. So I just try and eyeball where we're at. We're a little past 6, so it's not quite 6 1/4. And I'm going to mark that 0. And that is our center. And then I'm just going to mark that the whole way so I know where my center is. And I believe my spine, I want to be, this isn't going to get much bigger than it already is because I'm not adding anything additional to it. So I want to see what my spine needs to be. And I think 1 inch is healthy. So I'm going to just go 1 1/4 inches from each center. So 1 1/4 inches out from center. So 1 1/4 inches is 1/2, 1/8. Here's my 1/4 right here. So this is the center point of my spine. And this is where my spine is going to be. And it's always good, I feel, to fold it on where the spine is going to be. Start developing that crease right away. This is all going to be covered with fabric, but the better we have that established, the easier it is in the long run. So that will be our spine. So now I'm gonna put gesso on this and get my fabric separated. I'm gonna use some super heavy because I find that it is better on this, whites it out better. The other reason I went with the super heavy is there's less liquid, it's less liquidy, it's thicker. And I wanted to really minimize how much liquid I was using on this because you're gonna lose your crinkle. And to be honest, I did lose some of my crinkle, and I really don't think this really showed through at all. So there's that. Keep that in mind when you're doing these things. If you want that crinkle, minimize the amount of liquid you use on this insert. All right, so it took a lot. It's the next day. So it took a lot of stitch stripping to get everything out, and it had these really weird little pieces like ties, which I thought I could sew together to make the bookmark that's going to attach. Now it was also interesting to see how much love this pillowcase, and which is what it ended up being, how much love it got and use, which was neat. But these are super thin, so I was thinking of doubling them up and doing 2 layers, because this is going to go on the inside. So that was my thinking. So I think what I'm going to do is get rid of all these edges and then cut them down to size. We'll do one at a time here. Now there was a part of this where I can't even see it, where the ties were, but I think I might have ripped it off on the shorter side. And I'm gonna make this just a hair bigger than my cover. And see how brown that is? And I don't really want to lose this, so I think I am going to not paint it as like I did this one, because I want to get as much crinkle out of it as possible. So I'm going to set this aside and cut the next one. Alright, I have both pieces are cut, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my PVA glue out, and I'm going to glue one down, and then I'm going to glue the second one on top of it, I'm only going to glue kind of in the center a little bit. Be pretty easy with the glue because I am going to be sewing around the outside edge. So I have my PVA glue and my jar for that. That should be enough because I am going to also do the other piece. Let's see, that should be thin enough. So if this bleeds through, that'll be fine because I'm going to put this down too. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just glue it one section at a time. Make sure. There we go. And I'm going to use my old beloved 1-inch Princeton Select flat wash brush. So I'm going to just like lift this back and just put a thin layer just so we don't get lots of wrinkling going on after it's sewn and everything. And I want to make sure we're over the edge. Put a little bit more down here because it's wanting to flip up and I don't want that to flip up. And then I'm just going to go section by section. I'm not going all the way to the edge because I'm going to be sewing there. And I don't want to have my sewing machine feel the brunt of that glue. It will not like it, that's for sure. But I see how you can see that through, and I think by doing a second layer it's going to really keep that from showing. Plus this first piece had some stains on it, so because I'm in Arizona, things dry really fast, so I'm doing these in pretty small sections. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the second piece. And you'll see when I go to glue the front piece of fabric, that quilted piece, you're gonna see I'll be a little bit more heavy-handed with the glue, but this is so thin I don't want it spuging through. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside to dry, and I'm going to start working on this piece of fabric. So I've decided I really want to focus on this part. But I have to make the decision if I want this gingham or not, and if I want to be inside here. And I think what I'm going to do is just come inside so I don't have to worry about this border. And and just do it like this. So this will be, let's see, this will be the front. So we'd have to do it like this so that we get this on the front. Something like that. So this is going to be a little bit more challenging to rip. So I think I'm going to have to cut it to get this to turn out the way I want it to. So I'm going to mark this so that I can cut it out where I want to. So I'm going to come just outside of this green thread. And just cut on my line. This is a Stabilo All in graphite, and I love using it as a pencil to make marks because it is graphite. It'll be lighter, but it marks on everything, so it's really handy. Okay, so I'm gonna set that to finish drying, and then I'm gonna cut this out, and I might do something with this. I don't know, we'll see if that ends up playing a part in this at all. I really think this edging is really sweet. Not really my usual style, but I just really fell in love with this. I think it's because it's so soft. And this has the batting and everything right on it. It's real thin batting. All right. Yay. So this is the front cover. So that's what we'll see. I like how it goes around. And I like how it goes off. It kind of loses some of its character though without this pink on it. And maybe I can separate this from the batting and get some of this and just do a border around the whole thing. Whew. What I think I'm going to do, I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut this out, and then I'm going to use my stitch ripper to stitch rip it off of the batting and probably cut off this bright colored stuff that was stitched in to make the pillowcase, because I don't want that. I really want this vintage looking fabric here. So that'll do one and a little bit. And this will definitely do this and probably the rest of that. So I just need that. So I do need another length of this. So I'm going to get busy and get this stitch ripped. Might as well cut these off. And let's see, how much of this do I want? Actually, I probably didn't need to cut this last one because I can get 2 out of this, I think. And that should rip down. Once I get the fabric off the batting, I should be able to rip that down and get 2 out of that. And I'm just going to be stitch ripping off the batting portion of this and then trimming this pink piece in half so that I can use each strip for 2 sides of the journal cover. All right, so I think that is going to be really nice. I can't wait to really see it when it's folded. So what I'm going to do is put these to the side and get this piece glued down onto the paper. And like I said before, I'm going to be a little bit more heavy with this glue because this fabric is thicker, but I don't want to lose my crinkle of my paper. So okay, so this needs to dry. Once it's dry, then we'll sew these pieces on. Meanwhile, I need to come up with a bookmark for this, and I want it to, so when we do the sewing, we're going to sew it into the center where the spine is. So right in this area. So we'll sew it like right in here, but I want it to be the full length. So I'm going to pick some of these that are not so wrinkled like these are. These two are pretty wrinkled. So I can just sew a piece on here because I want it to come out the end so I can see it and find it real easy. So right now I'm going to do that. Give this a zip. The other thought I had was using some of this piece, but it's pretty thick and I don't want that to bulk up. So I'm gonna get this sewed and then we can figure out where, how long I want it to be. Okay, I made the decision that I was gonna use this green thread because I really love it. It's vintage thread and I really like it, and I probably should have glued this in between that, but it's all right. It is what it is. It's not going to get a lot of pulling on and that kind of thing. So the other thought was this could be at the top, and I can leave this down so this doesn't show as much, because we only need a little bit of this hanging out. I think that is a good spot. And so eventually we will sew this right into this as we go. All right, this has to dry. We will be back. All right, I want to measure and pin this where I need it to be in the center of the spine. So this isn't quite dry yet, but I thought we could do this while we're still waiting. So you remember we did the spine, kind of folded it where we wanted it for the spine. And I know that my spine is I think it was 1 3/4 of an inch. So it's that size. So we just gonna put it in there. And we know that this needs to go in the center of this, which would be right here. So that is where I'm gonna pin it. There we go. So I know that on the first run around, I'm gonna get this sewed in up here. I am gonna end up sewing around this multiple times, and one of those is going to be to put these on the other side, but I don't want to have to watch both sides, making sure for placement and having two pieces on here when I know I'm going to be going around it multiple times. The other thing is I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my standard. So this is my standard template for my planners. I generally do a 3-hole binding on this for the signatures. So I have made a template that fits in here. Now there's more fabric than what I had originally measured for, but I kind of eyeball it, lay it down, and then I will punch the holes, pre-punch the holes for the signatures, not with this in there. This will be out. And pre-punch that once this is already sewn. And then I had made, based off of that measurement, a strip that can go inside of each of the signatures to punch the holes so that they are exactly the same, as in the same placement as these holes are. You don't have to work on using templates. I just find it's a little bit easier. I don't always do that. What you can also do is align your signature, your first signature that you're going to sew in. For me, that's always my last signature, which would actually be this one. Line it up where I want it, fold this over, open it up, and push the awl through in 3 sections. So I can just actually put this in there, and you don't even have to do this. You can punch this hole through the cover as well as through the signatures, and that way you don't have to map it out. So, and you can eyeball it. I always go half down, 1 inch down on either side, and then that center point. That's my basic, and that's why I always do the three hole signature stitch, because I know that it's easier with the 3 holes. I just go down an inch, up an inch, and that, whatever that center is, you can even fold it in half to find that center, and that is. So that just gives you a little bit more detail on making yourself a template or not. So now this really needs to dry a little bit. It's still kind of, I can feel how cool that glue makes it feel, and it does have a crinkle, but it's not totally back to where I want it. So I am going to let this sit for a little bit longer, and then we will get to stitching. Alright, so I've gone around the edge once and got this caught, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin this up so that I don't accidentally sew over it when I go to sew the other side. There we go. So now I'm going to add these strips, and I want the straight edge to the inside and the ripped edge to the outside. And I'm just going to sew along it like that. I'm going to do one and then add in the next one and then do the next one. So I'm going to pull from here. There we go. I have some pieces I need to trim off here that went over. And then I'm going to go over it one more time with the final stitch. And I usually do a straight stitch, and then I go to a zigzag, and then to a straight stitch. Alternate it. So the outside will look like it has two sewing edge, two goes around, but the inside will look like it has three. All right, so there we go. Can unpin this. We're gonna have to put this to the outside when we go to sew in our signatures. But there is our cover. Yeah, that's got a good feel. And it still has that paper feel to it. So next up, we are going to sew in our signatures. So to do that, we're going to need something to poke into. We're going to need an awl, and we're going to need this template to begin with. So I'm going to position the template, make sure we're in our center. And I like to clip it and then double check it. And that's right. Okay. And then we're just gonna put our, I just use a little cork trivet, put that behind it, and then go in and poke these initially with the cork trivet underneath, and then I'm going to go in and make the holes bigger just so that I can find them easier when I am going to sew my signatures in. So here you can see them kind of, but I like to go in and just go a little bit deeper because the awl is bigger as it goes, and you'll see the holes are bigger, so that it's easier to see them. Okay, so the cover is poked, and now I need to do the signatures. Now these, I just get them tapped out to where they are nestled nicely inside of each other, and I usually just clip it on one end, and then with the top to the top I place my piece inside of it, my template inside of it, make sure it's flush, and then I kind of fold it and push my awl through because I want to make sure it's right into that crease. So you can see those are right where the spine is. So I'm going to do that for each of these. And I'm really not one for perfection and exactness. I just am one for having fun with it, so I don't get too worked up about things that don't work out. That's partially why I make my cover fairly larger than my signatures, but I also like that cover to protect my signature edges. So, oops, that got moved. I hope that's in the right spot. It is. Okay, good. So because there's like a bumper, because my cover is bigger than my signatures, it gives it a little bit of bumper, so it does, the edges of these pages don't get too beat up in the process. Okay, so I like to start with my last signature, so I'm putting that to the top. And I'm putting away my awl because I will not need that. And my templates. And I want I usually use waxy flax, and I want to use green, so we come in with this green that we've kind of theme we've got going on. So I'm going to use some DMC floss in a green. I don't have any waxy flax in green, so I'm going to get DMC floss and I'm going to wax it. And I think I want to use this color. It's in between these two, and I have a lot of it. What you need for each signature, you need 3 lengths of the signature. So you need that for all 4. So I'm going to pull out what I need for each of these signatures. I like to err on the side of caution and have more than enough. I know some people use 2 lengths, 2.5 lengths, I think. Okay, so now that I have those cut, we need to wax them. So you need one of these, either some candle wax. You can run this through candle wax. I have one of these little doohickeys. So what I like to do is hold it on one side and pull it through the wax, and I like to turn it in my finger. I just twisted it and then run it through a second time so it's sufficiently waxed. This enables it to go through and be able to tighten it better when it's going through. So this enables me to use the DMC floss and not always have to rely on just the colors I have in waxy flax. Now I have a lot of waxy flax, but I don't have green. For some reason this DMC feels like it needs to go through more than twice, so I'm running it through 3 times. Okay, there we go. Now the next thing we're going to need is a large-eyed needle, sometimes called a blunt tip. So I have this huge one, which is just overkill for what I'm doing right now. I have this one, but it's really short and I don't like to use it. So I'm going to use this one because it's pretty long, but the eye is not overkill. So I'm going to start with my last signature. The way you do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch is, if you want the thread to appear on the outside, then you start from the outside. If you want it to appear from the inside, then you start from the inside. And I like mine to be on the outside because I like the way the knots look. You can also leave your tails long and put in beads across if you want. You have choices. So usually I put them on the outside, and I'm going to do the same thing today. So I'm going to go to this last hole in the center is where we start. There we go. And you leave a tail. I've heard some people like to put the tail on a clothespin on it and then roll it and then repinch it so that they don't accidentally bring it all the way through. I've never done that. We'll try it. So then you're going to come in on the center hole, pull it tight without pulling through, go to the top or the bottom, either is fine. and you're going to go all the way to the bottom, the final hole. And I'll pull this tight. And then I'm going to go through the last hole, the bottom hole of my signature. Pull it tight. And I'm going to come through the center without splitting the thread. This is where using waxy flax and the blunt nose of the needle really helps. And you're going to go back through that hole without splitting the thread of the original. And you're going to go on the opposite side of this long strand. And then we're going to pull it tight. And make sure that this is not loose from you want it flush up to that material. I mean up to the cover. And so it's on either side. And then you're going to do a square knot. So we're going to go a regular knot tie, pulling it tight, and then we're going to do a square. That holds really well. I'm not going to tie these up, cut these off until the end. So that's our last one. And now we're going to go to our next signature. And we're going to go to the next set of holes.
And we're going to do that same process over again for each of the subsequent 3 signatures.
All right, there we go. Our signatures are in. And now you can see how this will work. If we're working on May, then we have it in May, and we can find it here and take it back up to where we are at. So I liked having that on the last one I did. So now I'm going to go through and just get a few of these stray threads taken care of. I like threads, but not necessarily on my planner. I don't like a ton of them. Now I have to make some decisions. I need to decide about the front. I don't usually do much except for put on the year, and I like the front. The other thing is I don't want to put any beads on this because I use this a lot and I'm writing in it, and beads are going to make it bump up. So I am going to trim these down. So now I need to get the year and decide on a cover. So that is next. Alright, so I've looked at quite a few different things. I thought about putting a piece of lace. This is crocheted lace with cotton. Maybe putting a piece of this in here. But it just takes away from this. I thought about bringing this in somehow. But the blue is new. It's not anywhere on here. And then there was this. This gets kind of lost behind. I did think about, I think I'm going to put the year on this card and paint this and rivet it to the front at the bottom, because that shouldn't bother me. There is this gauze, which is really neat. This pale pink. We could use some of this down here. Let the cover stay as its own statement, and put this down here with the year in it. So I want to paint it, and I think I might need to go over it with some white. I'm going to go over it with really lightly with a dry brush, just on the outside parts, so I don't accidentally glue down where I need my piece of paper to go in. This was made for me. See, there's a little hole here to put this paper in, out of packaging by my friend Crafty Hope. She has a laser cutter. Don't really need to do the back, but I do need to do the edges. Okay, and I wasn't sure which one. Granny Smith. On top of this, I think I would do Granny Smith and not this. So we're gonna pretend like, and since all of our accents have been in a green, that's what I'm gonna go with. All right, I got a small round brush out. Get this dry. Now, I think I'm going to use my own handwriting. That's kind of different, having it go on vertically. That kind of gives it a little bit of interest. But now I've got to write this in, make sure it's centered and in that space. So we're going to test it out first and see. And I don't know if this is going to bleed. This is the same paper as this. Nope, it's not gonna bleed. Okay. A little bit of paint pen for the win. Now, I hope these rivets will go through everything. I think we should use the smallest ones. And what we can do is just put the rivets through this, rather than going through the whole fabric and then just gluing it on. That's what we can do. Let's see, that's the tarnished brass. This is the chrome, I guess. I don't know. I don't like that one. And there's gold. That seems too shiny to me. Or silver. Ugh. Yeah, too shiny. I'm gonna go with that. First choice. Okay. Lots of noise. Went through that one. Yeah, I like it. It's different. Not what you'd expect to do something like that. And it gives me the opportunity to use some of the gauze. Okay. So I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac. And place the gauze on it. And then I'm going to use my iron to weigh that down. And once that's dry, I'll be back. Alright, so I have gone through and added my days of the week for all of the months. So it'll automatically be in there. So now I'm going to add my months. The word just each month. So I have got these die cuts and I'm pulling out my Archival inks. These are the Distress Archival inks as well as the regular Archival inks by Wendy Vecchi. And I have a small dauber in case I need the small one. And I have the big dauber. And I have this makeup brush. Depending on how much how much ink I want on the edges. So this kind of blends in. So I want to give it a little pop, and I think I'm going to come in with, I think Prized Ribbon is too bright of a blue for these blues, but I think Faded Jeans will be just enough. And I'm going to start, I think this is going to be too big to do these, so I think I'm going to come in with this makeup brush and distress this or edge it. Yeah, that'll be nice. I'm not really worried if I'm not going to be too particular about getting this edged. So I think that does a significant job at making it pop out a little bit more. And then I'm just going to get a piece of scrap paper to get the ink off as much as possible so that I can go on to the next one. I'm going to use my Barely Arts Precision Craft Glue to get these stuck down, and I'm just eyeballing it. So that's what I'm going to do for each of the months. Now this one might look good just being white. I'm gonna bring it down low because I really like this. I'm gonna give it a bit of color at the bottom only. Yeah, you really can't see it that much, so I'm not gonna worry about that. And I'm gonna go through and do the rest of these, and then I'll do a little flip through. All right, so I have finished the months. Some of them I did add the ink to. Some of them I did not. Some I added more than others. And now I am all set for the new year. Thank you for coming. If you've liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you're not yet a subscriber, wouldn't you consider subscribing?